Okay, thank you for joining, everybody. My name is Jessica, and I am public relations here at Wolf Law Chambers. Just so you know a little bit about Wolf Law Chambers, we are a flexible workspace built for legal practitioners by legal practitioners. We are currently located in Toronto, Mississauga, and Oakville, and we offer private offices, shared offices, and virtual office packages for anyone deciding to open up their own solo practitioner. It's open for paralegals, lawyers, and any legal practitioner. So I am going to send a bunch of lists just for you guys to get to know more about us. We also do CPD events. So hopefully when you all are licensed through the LSO, you can join our CPD event. A lot of them are free and very informative. Without further delay, I am going to pass on the mic to Gulverk. She is the founder of the she's the founder of the Canadian Law Tutor, and has a lot of great background. She is licensed through Ontario Bar and through BC Bar, so she has quite a good knowledge on all things licensing. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Gulverk.
Thank you so very much, Jessica. I thank you very much for Wolf Law Chambers for having this event and considering it's an important issue for everyone writing the exam next week. So we wish you good luck from Canadian Law Tutor and Wolf Law Chambers. I'm a lawyer in Ontario and British Columbia. So I have been teaching Ontario bar exams since 2013 and NCA courses since 2010. So I've got a lot of experience. So you can consider I'm more like a dinosaur in the process. So who know things, how they work, used to work before, we have all these virtual platforms and, online exams and everything. So we used to worry about performance in the in-person exam, the strategy for in-person exams, as well as our exams in online are two different things and they need a little bit different strategy. So today in my presentation, it would be more like I'm not going to show you any slides or anything. It'll be more like what I have from my experience, and you can ask me any question, interrupt me, and we would take it from there. So it would be more like an interactive session so that you can have all your questions answered during the session rather than waiting for later on to show up and send me an email. So in today's presentation and in this webinar and in our conversation, it's more like I would say a conversation with everybody who is writing the exams and stressed about how to succeed in the process. So first thing we need to know in the exam process and in today's presentation, what to accept. So one part would be how the basic strategies, how to perform better in the paper format. Another, what are the main things we must know in the process? So for what we must know is everything what have Law Society of Ontario gone through in the changes. Currently, the changes require us to adapt into this new platform. So how can we have a successful attempt in this? And what are the basic things considering in this process? So as well as the first thing in exam process is how to prepare for that day. Number one, reach the exam site in advance. It is more like when I wrote my exam in 2012, it was more like, the way we reach for airport security clearance and things like that. So they want to go through everything which you have. So make sure you have lots of Ziplocs in which everything is in the clear plastic bags and you reach there in advance. And you have something to ask, Rekha? Please go ahead. Hi. So anytime you have any question, you can just unmute yourself and ask me questions, no problem. So the first thing which was very, very important is reaching the exam site in the morning. No problem. Reach there in advance and then start going through your process of, security check and everything you must have all the, everything in the plastic bags. So that is more like the protocol, and you can read what Law Society's in-person proctoring system says in the process and on the website. If you still have questions, you can ask me. Then during the exam, when you're sitting on your table, you are allotted an individual table, and your chair, all your belongings should always should be behind, under your chair all the time. You are only allowed to have your study material on the table. That being said, the proctors are extremely friendly. I found them very reassuring, as from experience from my students and from my own experience of writing the exam. All you have to do is raise your hand and ask the question like, hey, I need to grab my chocolate or my drink from my clear bag. So they're very accommodating. That being said, the third component of the exam is when we are performing in the exam. So you will have, it's my other paper. So this is something like you will have a booklet. You will be given 2 documents. One would be your booklet of exam question, and the second would be your scanner sheet used on that. So how to strategize at that moment to decide? So first, go through your OMR sheet and then your question paper, go to the last number, right? So you go to the last number. For example, in your first half of the exam, you would be given an individual sheet and one individual Scantorn sheet. Those things you will not come back to you in the second half. The first half, whatever they give you in the terms of questions and the answer sheet, that would be taken from you before the lunch break, the way it used to work in old times. So that being said, the next thing we have is how to do the time planning and everything. I would be sending everybody, time management sheet as a follow-up of this event. You can use that sheet right up with you on your desk if you don't have it. Usually, if all the students have their own time management sheets. Okay, Nadia, we will come back to your question. So let me finish this. So this is what the exam question is. The exam booklet looks like, and there would be a single sheet for us in the process, right? So we look at the questions. So one mistake which I made, I never looked at the number of questions I had in time. Yes, no, that was my mistake. We don't have a lunch break in these exams. This would be direct exam. So in this situation, we would have an exam question and the answer sheet. So make sure you look at the question number, because question number can be 121, 180, 160, 190, or whatever. Make sure at the first thing, what you do is count the number of questions, and your Scantorn sheet would have more than actual exam questions, because those are standard sheets. So many students start bubbling and they are not careful about how many questions they are doing. So my first step for everybody writing the exam is, when you look at the questions, right, and you look at your Scantorn sheet, make sure you count the number of questions and you put a end line over there. You circle it by saying this is what it is. So supposing you have 120 questions, for example, hypothetically, and your Scantorn sheet may have 150 bubbles for 150 or 160 bubbles to be filled or something like that. So make sure you match those to avoid any confusion, because even if we count one thing wrong, we won't be able to go back to that again. So the best part is count the number of questions on the last sheet. The booklet, if your questions, just go to the last sheet and see the number. If it's 120, 128, 129, make sure in the first step you have added that in your Scantorn sheet as a markup. So you mark the same number, corresponding number of the question before you even start bubbling the questions, because I've seen students getting confused because we have so much anxiety. The mind is working is racing, and there is so much going on in our head. So it's so hard to recalculate things. So this simple step of knowing the number of questions and knowing the number of places in Scantorn Sheet to be filled and match them in the beginning and spend at least 1 minute, pause at the moment, would set you up for the success in the exam. That is my step 1. So we'll go for the question, and then I will continue to share my. Yes, Nadia, thank you very much for your contribution. And your question is, how much desk space is there given the amount of material we have? The way I had my question, there was a quite decent desk. It was not my office table, but less than an office table, but more than a desk. So there was enough space, as I would say, when I was giving the exam, or my students prior to 2010, when I've heard from them, I never have anybody have this issue of understanding that there was not enough desk space. But you need to know, you cannot have your own stationery. For example, you cannot have your own pens and pencils. The Law Society would provide you, there is a strict rule. At times it sounds silly as well. So they will give you 1 highlighter and 2 pencils. So, and once your first pencil is kind of, wearing off, I would say, raise your hand and get another pencil and get it replaced, rather than slowing down the process when your second pencil wear out. So the ideal situation, what happens during the exam is they will give you 2 pencils and 1 highlighter. So it's no longer sharp to bubble the circles. You should always ask for another pencil right away and get it replaced so that it doesn't slow the process. You can continue to do it with one hand and raise another, and they are very coordinative. The proctors are very familiar with the process, so they know what to do. So if you point out to the pencil, they will replace it and leave, no problem. So that being said, another thing in this is, as you have organized your material from day one, from the first minute of your exam, you would have a question paper and an answer sheet. And the first step is we match the number of questions on the question paper as with the answer sheet, so there is no confusion. Now, another step which I always recommended students pre-pandemic when we were doing exams in a more in-person way, many students would try to do the questions in the beginning on the question paper. Like if you have A, B, C, they would say B, and then the next question B, and not finding enough time in the end to fill the Scantorn sheet. And that can cause mistakes. So my recommendation number 2 for everyone over here is that make sure you fill the questions, solve the question, and then fill the Scantorn sheet the same time. Be very careful in bubbling. And if you have doubt about one question, like supposing I'm not very sure about the answer and I believe I need to revisit that question again. 1 second. Yes, I will come back to these 2 questions shortly. 1 second. So we don't want to miss the topic what we are saying. So the first question we said, like, we will match the questions and we will match the answer number of places on the Scantorn sheet. And the second concept we are trying to absorb in our mind is that when you answer the question, make sure you transfer the answer on the Scantorn sheet immediately. Since your Scantorn sheet should have clear bubbles, there should not be any mistake, extra lines. Make sure in the end you would erase that, and the eraser would be provided by the Law Society. So there would be 2 pencils, 1 highlighter, and 1 eraser always on your desk. So when we are filling the Scantorn sheet, we will see. So this would be a typical sheet, and supposing the number and answers are till here. So supposing the number of questions given by the presentation, given in your question paper are up to over here. So you will make a small mark here so that your brain knows here we need to stop, because you are continuously looking at the question paper and the answer sheet, and it will give you a psychological control over your exam that, okay, I don't have to go over here, I just have to go over here, right? So the next question we have over here is, the next concept we are visiting over here is, make sure we transfer the answer on a Scantorn sheet immediately after answering from the booklet, right? So once we do it, supposing we have a doubt, so it's so hard to revisit this booklet. Do not make that mistake. Like, I know that question number 19, I would go back and I would check my answer. You would make a small mark on your Scantorn sheet. Make sure you erase everything in the end from your Scantorn sheet. So whenever you have doubt, it's easier to use your Scantorn sheet as your guide throughout the process for time management, to revisiting the answers and completing the process in a more efficient, effective, and a time-controlled way. So the first step I had already discussed a number of times. The second step, which I'm stressing right now, is transfer your answers immediately on a Scantorn sheet. If you have a doubt, then make sure you make a small mark next to the number of questions. Supposing this is you're on question number 19, but you're not very sure you want to go ahead, but you don't want to waste too much time, but you think like in the end, if you have time, you can always do that question again. So you will make a small mark over there on the Scantorn sheet. Use it as a guide to answer the questions more effectively. Now we'll go on a question. So desk-based answer is this thing. Yes, Manali, very good contribution. Yes, I was speaking more for my previous experiences. Yes, in this particular exam, we do not have lunch break. So we would have one Scantorn sheet in the process throughout the whole exam. So it's very good to go and answer the question. Look at the number of questions, make it a note on the Scantorn sheet, like I need to go during this process. Yes, so we have a very good question over here. It says, the LSO website says you can use a bag that is not a luggage to carry the binders, etc. to the desk. But the definition section says that luggage includes a tote bag, backpack, etc. Yes, backpacks and tote bags are not allowed, almost everything. So I would say it's more like a huge plastic clear bag which you can use. But as far as I'm concerned, the way I organized and always recommended my student prior to 2020 how to organize the material, I always said, like, it's better to carry all your binders in your hand and have a big Ziploc and then have everything in small Ziplocs inside that Ziploc, which has small change or cash or your IDs, everything in a clear plastic bags in a Ziplocs, and all those Ziplocs in a one Ziploc to carry it, and your material in your hand. So that's what I was saying. Or in our alternative, we can have a big carry bag in the, like, big, not carry bag, like more like a big transparent bag, a clear bag, clear plastic bag, which we can use for the exam. So this is what I think, but what I always recommended, carry the material in your hand because you don't have stationery. All other belongings can be into multiple small Ziplocs and those Ziplocs in a big Ziploc. Will they still break up the questions into the relevant section audit? Thank you very much for this question. And I believe they should be. There is no reason to change the exam pattern, but I cannot answer that for sure. And I think Law Society will give us some kind of sample questions before the exam and some more guidelines before the exam, usually in the practice exam. So that's what is, but I cannot say for sure in my opinion, because I have no authority to say whether they will break up the question. Ideally, the exam question should be broken up. On that note, we should know that professional responsibility is all over the place. So professional responsibility material should be with you when you're doing civil answer, public law answers, family law answers, or criminal law answers. Okay, for the remote exam, thank you very much, Nadia. This is an amazing question. For the remote exam, we have been able to electronically bookmark questions. How do you recommend we do that in person? So as I said, I would say when you're bookmarking a question, use your Scantorn sheet for that. So I would say you make a point over here. Supposing you have to visit the question number 19, it's here. So make a small mark next to question number 19 and bookmark it, so that you can revisit that question in the end if you think you need to, but make sure you remove or erase every mark other than your bubbles. Are we allowed to bring sticky tabs to bookmark questions? That's Samantha, that's a very interesting question. And I believe you should be allowed. There should not be any reason, but we have to, I will answer this in an email to everyone and read the rules and interpret according to that. So what I'm going to do is, are we provided an eraser? Yes, Natalia, I was provided an eraser. Everybody who was before the exam were given eraser, so I don't see why would not get an eraser. Yes, please keep your questions related to the exam, and we have a registration process. I think we should focus and value the time of all our students who are writing the exam and all this, stressed about the success in an in-person exam. So I would say we should, if you have any question about the registration or anything, you can directly message me on my social media, Canadian Law Tutor. I'm known as Goldberg, and I have my page as Canadian Law Tutor. You can direct message me on Instagram, YouTube, or anywhere, and I would be happy to answer. But I would like to use this opportunity to, ease the nerves of everybody who is writing the in-person exam. So we have talked about, so let's keep going for the questions. Yes, Sabrina, yes, your question is in high school. When I last used Scantorn, we were told that the marking the Scantorn elsewhere than on the right bubbles area might, yes, that is a fact. This is why I'm repeating that we should erase it, but there is no harm in making a small, mark on the questions and use it as a bookmark to work efficiently in the process. So I would not, worry much about the Scantorn sheet or anything like that. So we should be able to use it and then erase it. Erasing is very important in the end. And in my own exam, I had some, I think in my barrister exam, I was very nervous. I will tell you my story, how I messed up my exam. So in my, yes, so we will see. Yes, I will. So anything which is not related to the exam, success the next week, we should value the time of all the students who are here. I would be happy to do any other answer about the studying or anything which is not related directly to the exam. I would be doing it on my personal time. I want everybody to use this time for the questions. So please ask me those questions which are relevant to the success in the exam. And if you have any other question and you are not writing the exam next week, you are here. Thank you very much. We would go to your questions in person in an email. Yes. Yes, you can bring the, hi, Eddie. So I will see, so I have answered the question from Sabrina, and we will ask the question. Yes, now we are on the washroom break, how it works. So when I wrote my exam, how the washroom break was thing, you are not allowed to leave your material. So you raise your hand for the washroom break, and you would, the proctor would come. They would carry your material with you, like you can actually do the continuous exam while you are going on a washroom break. So they're very kind. They follow you towards the washroom, and they are standing right there, and you can start working as long as you finish the washroom break. So they walk with you and you are escorted to the washroom and you are escorted back to your seat. That's how it happened, and it's my personal experience. So I hope that helps. Yes, you used your washroom when my exam was there. You use washroom on your own time, so it's your own expense. There is no break unless you have an accommodation for your exam. I believe some people, for health reasons, mental health, physical health reasons, they have accommodations. So I believe they are allowed to stop the clock, but anybody else who is in the process is not allowed to stop the clock. So yes, Eddie. So the question is, can we bring the suitcase to the exam site and would leave them the code check, or would you recommend leaving them at your hotel? I would say, yes, you can bring your material to the exam site in a bag or something, and you can leave the bag at the code check. There shouldn't be any issue in my process. But if you're using a taxi or anything coming to the exam sites, I would say, why carry it in the bag? Keep yourself to the minimum trouble and keep your material handy. It's not one exam, it's not that much, like, which we cannot carry in our own hand, rather than leaving it, wasting your time and energy on the day of the exam for the code check and everything. So the next question is from Jennifer. LSO asked me to arrive 1 hour 30 minutes earlier, but after reading the process, yes, I would say I would, even in my exam was to start at 9 o'clock, and I would give my exam day how it works. So how it worked at that time in 2012. Don't think I'm a dinosaur. I wrote exam in this century. My kids think I'm a dinosaur because I'm born prior to 2000, but I wrote exams in 2012, so I am not a dinosaur, but still a dinosaur for LSO process. So how LSO process worked at my time. Even at that time, you were asked to, because there are long queues. So it's more like reaching at airport. So I would recommend for the security clearance and stuff. So there would be security clearance, there would be scrutiny of your exam material. So it's better to reach early in the process, because even if the exam was starting at 9 o'clock for me, we were seated at 8:30 and I was at my exam site at 7 o'clock. And I think it was worth it because I was done with the process and I was more relaxed. So it's your personal choice, but I would say reaching the exam site in advance, depending upon where you're traveling, what you're doing, it makes sense for me. Can we just mark the questions to revisit on a separate paper to make sure we don't affect the Scantorn? Emma, that's a very good suggestion, and that's a very good strategy. Thank you very much for recommending this to everyone, and it's new thing for me as well. So I think you can do on the other sheet as well, but the point is you would it's more like the time management. You may not have time to look at too many papers around you. So the one thing I can do for everyone is I would tweak my time management sheet for everyone, so that you can use that time management sheet to make sure you don't ruin the Scantorn, and you can start using it as a guide or bookmark the questions. So I will do that. Since there will be two clocks, countdown and regular clock, do you think it's helpful to have a timer sheet as well? Yes, timer sheet, in my opinion, of working as a coach for bar exam, tutor for bar exam, I would say timer sheet is very important, because trust me, you don't have enough time to raise your head and look at the clocks. The more you have on your in your own desk, and you can respond to that in that information, because if your mind is somehow tuned to that information that this is what it means, because I've seen in exam anxiety, we misinterpret things a lot. So to avoid that, I would say we should be able to have the timer sheet handy, and it would be helpful because you don't have time to look at at the clock at the wall. Yes, that works in a reverse order. You will understand. They will explain it in the exam process. So I hope I've answered your question. If you still have questions, then I would answer that again. So we have questions that LSO does not release the passing mark, but what should be the ideal score to pass the exam? Nirbhay, this is a very good question. So it is yes or no answer, because the passing rate keeps changing with, it's more like how much you are performing and how you're performing with the province in the process. So everybody in the process. So passing marks I've seen from 70s to 90s, because I work with students and to improve when they are unsuccessful. And I've seen a lot of failure reports in my 10 years of career. So I would say I've seen between 70s, early 70s to late 80s, or even sometimes in some component 91% or something, or even, for example, ADR process and ADR and practice management, people score more than almost 100% as well. So it really depends what we are doing it, but I think there is some threshold, and I don't see that LSO has that much. And this is my experience. I'm not an expert. I'm not associated with Law Society. I'm just governed by Law Society and a proud member of Law Society of British Columbia and Ontario. But I would see we should not be worried about numbers that much. So I don't see there should be any limited, like any minimum score in the process. So I don't see that in the that like we should say like, hey, a person would for sure fail if this is there. So I think it's more like overall. Where do we keep our cell phones? I think we switch off our cell phones and leave in our coats. This is what we can do. Or yes, so cell phones are not allowed in the exam. You can leave it at the counter in your coat check. Yes, yes. Jennifer's question about arriving early. I live an hour away from the site, but morning traffic towards that part of the town is a nightmare. Do you recommend? Yes, I would highly recommend living close to the exam site. Anything which gives more control over the process of the day is always an investment in your future. So I would say staying in a hotel next to the exam site is highly recommended, so that you can have time on your side rather than struggling, because all the frustration and everything kind of contribute and make us nervous in the process. The following items are provided by the Law Society on the examination sheet. Yes, a highlighter to see. I was right. It was same in 2012 and up to 2020, then they are back to the same. Yes, exam questions with booklet and Scantorn. So make sure we have questions and Scantorn sheet, corresponding number of questions. We understand how, and I will come back to this question. So remember we were talking about that we have an examination booklet as well as we have a Scantorn sheet. Do a little bit of division at the time. In the morning, when you look at the number of questions and number of the bubbles to be filled and the time, I would provide you hypothetical number of, because the time changes. You cannot spend 1 minute on every question. So the number of questions actually given to you during the exam and the answer you would be doing corresponding in your Scantorn sheet would change in the process. So that keeps varying. So you may have 1 hour and 20 seconds or may not have 1 hour and 20 seconds for the question. So I will do pre-calculations and add it to my timer sheet so that you have pre-calculated stuff right on your timer sheet so that you can use it to successfully answer the exam. So before you even start doing the questions, do a little bit of division and try to understand like how much time you would be actually spending on the question. So Jennifer, the question is, would it be a long line because we are in March? Yes, we don't know because originally 1100 students were supposed to write the exam, over 1000 as per the media reports when the exam was cancelled. So we don't know how many of them were writing barrister, how many of them were writing solicitor. So we have to see what should be. But in any case, even if we have 200 or 300, that's a long queue for when we are doing in-person checking of each and every one. So we would be prepared for that kind of information. Yes. When will the exam sites for the June 2020 sitting be released? Emma, we have to wait with the Law Society's update, and we cannot make any comment on that and lead anybody to any confusion. Yes, we are always given a choice to write the exam. If the exam is available only on one day, originally the exam were not split into any number of days prior to the pandemic. So it started in June 2020 when the exam was given into separate windows. So prior to that, the exam was happening only on one single day, usually the first Tuesday and the third Tuesday of month of March. June and November used to be the Ontario bar exam. That was a standard from it for at least 10 years in my experience, in my personal experience. So when I used to make my calendar based on my students' prospective exam on the tutoring, so that's how it worked in the process. So we have to see how they offer it for the June 2022 sitting, and then I'll be happy to answer any question if you need to strategize your answers or your plan to write the exam. Based on your experience, is the time provided really sufficient for completing the exam? Considering many people use indices and for almost most questions, but some simply don't. So that's a very personal question, Abhilasha. I would split it into two answers. The number one is that your timing really depends upon all the information you have with you. So the way I prepare my students, the majority of the things can be answered in 20 to 30 seconds. You don't need indices. If you know when a leave is required, or you know that a leave is not required for this particular code of appeal or divisional code answer. So if your preparation for those procedural questions is very good, you can save time in the exam. I always say you cannot do anything other than buying the exam time in the exam. So more you know, you can buy the time in the exam, and everybody works differently. So we should not touch this question in the process, and we should not be worried in the that the other person is taking more time or anything. We should do our own calculation in the exam and answer from that. And I hope I have answered it. If not, please email me or reach out to me on my social media. And for exams, there are many questions which are coming to me through a direct message, how to study. So how to study has been already discussed by me on my YouTube channel, Canadian Law Tutor. If you go, there are, I think, 3 or 4 questions, 3 to 4 videos based on how to study, how to tab, how to highlight, and make your self-study successful. My aim in my passion and my aim over here is to assist everybody to successfully and comfortably write the exam, in-person exam. I know all you guys are young and have very, very tech savvy people. So you are in probably Jurassic Park of the bar exam, where you are navigating into old school ways, but it's not that scary. And let's see Yes, Abhilasha, very good question. Yes, inbuilt calculator. Now they will give you a physical calculator uh, in the exam, and if that is not listed, the law society, you can write to law society. I can write to law society on everybody's behalf and asking about the question. So basic calculator is provided even in barrister exam or in solicitor exam. Yes, there was a calculator provided at the process. As per Emma, so your question is in-person exam are only in Toronto? Yes. Right now, this sitting, usually the in-person exam used to work like in summer. In June sitting, the exam would be in Windsor, Ottawa, London, and as well as Toronto. So there were 4 test centers for the Ontario bar exam. But in winters, in March and November, I believe, if I'm not wrong, the exam was offered only in Toronto and Ottawa. And this is an unusual circumstance, and we are having exam only in Toronto. So we have to wait and see how it works. So there would be a calculator. Finally, thank you very much for answering the question. I will move on to the questions about how to attempt the exam in the third space. And if you have any question, please, and if you believe I need to repeat anything or I have not clarified things in a detail, so please ask me that and I would repeat and be happy to answer your questions. Go ahead. And you can even unmute yourself and ask me a direct question, no problem. So we have talked about so far about how to manage your day in the process and how to avoid any unnecessary stress and what to expect on the exam day. And if there is a time in the and towards the end of the meeting, if you have any question, even substantive question, if you want me to explain any, tax issue, any procedural issue or anything, you can just take a surprise test of your tutor and ask me question. Yes, Manali, I did say that when I took a washroom break, the proctor escorted me towards the washroom, and she carried my answer sheet as well as my exam booklet with me towards the washroom. So she was standing outside and she had it. Even though I didn't touch it, I didn't use it, but she was carrying it. That was the rule. So I'm not sure what should we expect, but that was there. So yeah, that was there, so that I remember. But that was that time costed me my exam time. But if you have an accommodation, I've seen I worked with student and made the recommendation, and they can do the clock freeze and everything in the process. Any other questions? So we talked about the day of the exam, what to expect, and let's have some tips about how to answer a question. What to expect, how to think like a lawyer in the process. So you're welcome. Thank you. So what is the question? How to answer a question? So when you read a question, right? It's different to when you read on a paper, right? So circle the lawyer and put L, circle the client and put C. So the first question, whenever you see the question number 1, you would try to think from the lawyer-client relationship, because we are just out of the law school and we have probably since grade 9 or 10 wanted to become a lawyer. So we think more about law. So everything is not law once we are into the business and we are running a successful practice. So things are more like how we manage the expectation of the client, how we comply with the law society's rules about client identification, client verification or practice management issues and everything. So do not filter the question from the exam from a legal point of view always. My tip over there is to use it as an opportunity to filter through professional responsibility. So the filter in your head should be a professional responsibility. And I use a very silly example in my classes for exam tips is it my circus? Is it my monkey? So, sorry, is it my circus? So do I need to manage this monkey? So the point is, are you bothered about the situation or not? So always learn how to detach from the situation. Just because there's so much legal issues thrown in a situation, it may not be a legal question. It may be simply a professional responsibilities question for client identification. So keep that filter alive in your head throughout the process. So think from the professional responsibility point of view as well. Like, am I actually, who is my client in this situation? If this person is my client, that's number one question, answered in yes. And the next question is, have I been retained to do what is required to be done in the question? So royal client relationship, retainer, instructions. So these things should always keep working in your head back and forth to answer the question. So that is how we work. So answering the question, I was going back to the question that when you read something on the sheet, you would see always, names written it. So they will say, my legal name is Navdeep. Navdeep met Nadia. Nadia hired her to be her lawyer in a business transaction or something like that. Do not waste your energy on Navdeep and Nadia. Reading the names drains your energy. Read it, circle it, or point it, and put C and L. Try to think from a neutral angle of lawyer-client relationship. And see, this is a lawyer-client relationship, whether it is established. If it's established, then whether the person would be required to do an answer on that or not. So is the lawyer required to work in the process or not? So that's how it works. So the first step would be look at the question from the lawyer-client relationship. And since you have an advantage of paper, you can circle the C and L to see who, if there are 3 or 4 names, who is the lawyer, who is the client. It saves energy. Another tip which I have been using is called Canadian Law Tutor one-to-one. What is one-to-one in this scenario? When you read a question, that's your step 1. Another step is your step 2 is reading the answers. For sure, there are 4 options. 2 are absolutely irrelevant and ruled out. But there are 2 which are kind of confusing. One looks more, convincing to us in some situations. So should you answer or move on? Unless you are very sure about something, you should answer and move on. But if you are a little bit shaky in that level, use the formula one-to-one. Read the question, read the answer, go back to the question now with that answer in mind. So formula one-to-one allows you to revisit the question and understand it more. Most of the time, at least 40% of times, your perspective changes at the process. So once you read the question, read the answer, go back to the question, you will try to see things differently at that point, and your point of view changes in the process. So the first thing is, tip for successful exam is, apart from your knowledge and your preparation and your exam sheets, charts and everything, you would have an advantage of using the lawyer-client relationship checklist in your mind to see whether I'm a lawyer in this situation. Even if I'm a lawyer in this situation, am I retained for this particular step in the process? For example, I've handled the case and I've been, fired by the client, or the original retainer was only to work for this trial, and now the appeal deadline is coming. Should I file a notice of appeal, or should I wait for the client's instruction or anything? If you've done your reporting letter, your responsibility ends at that retainer. That was one retainer which ended. There's nothing moving forward. So that kind of questions really save you into practice management scenario. Just because we are lawyer, we are passionate about law, but does in real world scenario, every situation is not a legal, does not require a legal judgment or legal and knowledge. It would more like business decision, professional development decision. So more like a responsibility of being a lawyer is also tested in the exam. So be very mindful for that as well. I hope I've answered the questions all in detail, given my tips. And if you have any other questions, please ask me so that before moving on, I would be happy to wind up this concept, and then we'll focus on mindfulness and all of the tips for the exam. Yes, we would have the recordings available, and you can use the recording at your own convenience. And even if you later on you find any question which you think should have been asked in the presentation, don't worry. I can be reached out on my social media, and my phone number is also 647-530-4220. You can text me, book a consult, and say, oh, this is what my question is, I forgot to ask, can you answer? I would be happy to answer. These are unprecedented times. You are going through a lot, and we at Canadian Law Tutor, with collaboration of Wolf Law Chambers, want you to succeed and start your career as soon as you dream of. So we are here to be part of your success story and make it more powerful and incredible success story. So these were my tips: how to manage your time, how to answer the questions. And next thing we would move on is the mindfulness. So if you're writing the exam, ideal time to stop studying. So my focus is not how to study right now, it's more like when to stop studying. So the stop studying should happen before, if your exam is on 7th, you should by 5th of evening of 5th of April, you should just clear your mind and stop studying. Trust your brain, trust yourself, trust your soul. Everything will come back in the exam. You should not be worried reading towards the end. Ideally, by 6th morning, 24 hours before exam, you should be absolutely focusing to chat with your family. If you're a parent, cuddling with your children. If you're a child yourself, cuddling with your parents, so that you get that emotional support in the process. And close your books, keep them closed to at least 24 hours before the exam. Don't rush, use your brain to exhaust before the marathon. The exam is marathon. We want our brain to work throughout the process and get results from the memory, get results from the time management and everything. So do not worry about that. So stop studying before the exam, at least 24 hours before the exam, and give yourself a break. And do not do another mistake some students would do. They would keep doing the question till the last date. It really doesn't matter. Whatever you have retained and learned, you already know that. So you should not be exhausting yourself one day before the exam. Just relax, focus on yourself. Even if you're working, take a break, because that break is very, very important part of your career choice and contribution towards your career. Next question. Anybody have any other questions so that we can start winding up to the session and answer your questions in the process?
Anyone feels comfortable, you can also unmute yourselves and share your video, have more of a real one-on-one discussion if that helps you, or you can write your questions in the chat, up to you, whatever you feel comfortable with.
Right. No, I'm very open for any sort of questions. You want me to revisit anything, I would revisit. Even if you have any specific question, you can ask me about sorry, I was reading the question and distracted. So I was saying, since this webinar was focused on your exam preparation and what to expect on the day of the exam, but if you still have a substantive question about the procedure, about the material or anything, I would be happy to answer that as well. Because the exam, we have a question, because the exam will not be divided into 2 sections, before and after lunch, do you think we'll be given specific amount of time to finish each section? Or we receive all the questions from the beginning of the exam? I think, Sabrina, in my opinion, this kind of situation, and please be mindful, I am not associated with Law Society of India, so I cannot give any, recommendation or any binding observation in this process. But I believe they will not waste your time to give booklets. So I would say you would be given ideally one booklet, and that booklet would have, say, for example, in the beginning, civil, then criminal, then family, and then public. So that's how it works. That's why I was repeating that you should look at the total number of questions in the booklet and make sure you have noted down on your Scantorn in my first opinion. But now we had a very good recommendation by somebody. So now I'm going to tweak my time management sheet based on that. And I would make a column for make sure that you can circle the questions, and so that you can use as more like a guide. So I will tweak it, and it should be available by tomorrow in the email provided. What do you think? Which section attempt first? How many questions can be expected on each section? I would not be able to say how many questions and stuff. We would be wasting time and making more like a guesswork, which would be a redundant exercise in my opinion at this point. But I would say because they're the final say is with the Law Society, they can change. They already have a plan, so there is no point in guesswork of that. So which question section to attempt first? I always go, I'm a very old school person, I always go in an order. So it really depends what you're planning to do. So I always go with an order, but some people like to do public law first or family law first. That's entirely up to you. But I haven't seen anybody more successful or unsuccessful by not focusing on one section first or anything. The ideal thing is just go with the question number 1 in one order. And one thing which you should be very mindful that in the beginning, if you don't know the first or the second question, do not get discouraged by that, because we are human beings. We pick pace. We sometimes are not very comfortable in the beginning to respond to a question, or we are not very comfortable, or your exam, you're a little panicked, your exam doesn't gel with you in the beginning, and you probably felt scared, like, oh, I don't even know the first question and I don't even know the second question. No worry, skip that, skip another one, and then start where you start making a pace with yourself. So be kind to yourself during the process. So even if you don't know the first question or the second question, don't get discouraged. They will also come back to you, and you will find a friend to begin with in the process. I think the exam identification process is absolutely the administrative branch of the Law Society. They would be able to answer that question about the proof of legal name and everything. I'm not an expert on that. And since it's a new requirement and I do not have experience on working. We have discussed, thank you very much about the bookmarking question. Shagun, we have discussed it I think you joined late, and we have discussed it a lot in our video seminar today. So we can use, ideal is to use it. What I did is on the Scantorn sheet and raised it in the end, but by the questions and the points raised by our concerned members, I would see a way to provide you an option to bookmark on my timer sheet. So you will have review of the event available with the video recording. You can listen to it, and I would be trying my best to complete that by end of the day today, and it would be ready with Jessica tomorrow to be sent to everybody who has done the exam or attended the webinar. And please feel free to share it with all your friends so that they can have this sheet to bookmark the questions. That's a very valuable planning tip in the exam. So we have talked about the day of the exam itself, and the mindfulness in the exam. Nadia Gill, the question is, are the practice questions we do similar to the actual bar exam question? So I would say it's more, again, yes or no question, Nadia, because we cannot say, I've seen people finding similarities with the bar exam questions and the way, the practice exams are, but still Law Society has its own question, and their Law Society's questions are not allowed to be shared outside in any other way, even in the exam, practice exam workshops. So the bottom line over here is, I would say you should be more focused on your material. So use the practice question to understand how a question can be asked, more like having a an exercise to see how things work in the process. Yes, that's a very good question. Let me finish this and I'll come back to your question, Michelle. So the question over here we have is, the similarity between bar exam questions and the similarity between actual practice exams available outside. So I would say you should take it more like an exercise to train your brain how to think in those constrained scenarios rather than worrying about the questions. You have read the material, you know things, so you would be able to answer the question, whatever comes in the bar exam. So don't stress about this, in my opinion. What is the best way to arrange the materials for the exam day? Yes. So I would say you should, what I recommended, the material and the indices in the separate binders, so that like family law material and family law binders, because you will be family law material and family law indices, because you'll be using indices to navigate the process. Or you will be using indices to navigate in the family law material. So I would not recommend having on that book. So if you are using it on that book, it's not very helpful, because that wastes time and it's not the best way, in my opinion. But I would say you can think about some other way, but ideally you should have your professional responsibility book handy throughout the process. And when you're answering your public law questions, there are some, because the base is civil procedure and evidentiary rules are more in chapter 30 and 31 of civil procedure, you should have your civil procedure book along with your answering sheet. Along with your along with your public law as well. So when you finish your, supposing if civil exam is first, you push that sheet on the side, and then you do family, then you criminal, then you do public. But in public, make sure you know where your civil material is, on which corner of the table, because you may need to bring it back. So make sure you have a separate tabbing bookmark, the chapter 31 and 30, which is trial procedure, more like evidentiary consolidation of evidentiary rules in civil procedure, because they would be probably tested in public law as well. So they should be handy to you. So I hope I have answered all the questions. If you still have any questions, please go ahead and ask me. So we talked about how to arrange your beginning of the exam, how to perform during the exam, and the third is how to practice mindfulness before the exam. I have my own charts for the exam helpline, for civil, for procedure, and civil procedure, family law, etc. I provide tutoring for both barrister and solicitor, both are one-on-one and on group sessions. So if you ever need help, you can reach out to me. And even if you do not need tutoring and you just have one question and you think it's, you are stuck, don't worry, you can always reach out to me and ask me questions. I read that anything we bring into the examination, yes. It really, so students can make copies for their own use, for their own material, photocopy. There's no harm in that. Law Society do allow that as long as you keep it for yourself. Many students keep photocopies of their material for themselves for future reference, but I don't think so. You should be really worried about the material being shredded because material was always being shredded by the Law Society for a long time. And the PDF is always available to you if you need. But if you think your highlightings and your notes on the material is, is important for you, as you can photocopy your material, and it is more like a personal choice to you. Any other questions? You can unmute yourself, ask me questions. And even if you have any specific question about the exam, I would be happy to answer any family law issue or any civil litigation, public law, estate litigation, business law, even taxation. You can test my knowledge on taxation. So you can ask me those questions. So I would repeat, I have a Canadian channel called Canadian Law Tutor, where I have specific videos on specific, success in the bar exam. So you can have all the questions answered over there. And if you still have questions, if anybody who's not writing the exam now, you would, sorry, I got distracted with the question. So I was saying, if you're writing the exam in June or in November, and you just have started studying for the bar exam, there are important videos on how to study and be successful in your self-study on my YouTube channel, Canadian Law Tutor. You can watch those videos. If you have any recommendation for me, like, well, this should be answered in your videos, I would be happy to have that as well. What are the most important topic in criminal and family law? No, I did not say that chapter 30 and 31 is important for civil law. I said chapter 30 and 31 is consolidation of civil evidentiary rules. So they are relevant in public law as well. So they should be kept handy while answering the public law. Civil itself is important for whole civil exam. Criminal is important for whole criminal law exam, and family law is as a book relevant for this thing. Thank you. That was a very nice compliment, Isabel. That's very nice. Thank you very much. I hope my today's session is helpful and makes you feel more confident, more empowered in your study. I wish you good luck, and I would be happy to see your call to the bar in June. And if you have any question regarding the process, please feel free to ask me. If you ever need tutoring, you can always reach out to me for learning the material. Trust me, the material can be understood in a very simple way. And I would be launching more taxation specialist classes, litigation specialist classes for state litigation, real estate and business law component of solicitor exam as well. In the second week of April, you can always reach out to me for those. Yeah, so it was lovely having you over here, and we wish you good luck. And the timer sheet along with important update as we discussed and learned during this process, we would be getting those to you in the real time. Hopefully in the next 24 hours, they would be available through Jessica and Wolf Law Chambers. We have a question.
Perfect.
Go ahead, please.
Thank you so much, Gal, for everything. It was a very informative lecture, and hopefully a lot of people took away a lot of good points for the upcoming LSO bar exams. I think Sabia has a question. She's her hand up. So if you want to unmute yourself and ask your question, please feel free.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, do you have any idea, like out of 160 questions, how many questions will be assigned to civil, criminal, or it's like, I mean, most of the portion is for civil, criminal, or public family, like any idea?
So I would say we will be doing redundant guesswork if we're doing the questions, because the Law Society always have a discretion to change it, right? Even if I say like 40 for civil, then there may be 80 for the civil. So I would say we should be ready. Usually the dominant part is civil, followed by criminal, family, and public. But we cannot say for sure like this is what it would be in the process, right? In the upcoming exam, because as we know that these are unprecedented times, so we should not be doing the guesswork. Usually the dominant part is civil, then followed by criminal, family, and public in the terms of number of questions, but I would not confuse anybody by saying that like this much the questions would be.
Okay, thank you.
Does anyone else have any final questions that they would like to ask Gal? All right, I think it's a good time to close off here. If you have any other further questions, you can always email us and we can pass it on to Gal, or she has also provided you her details and you can reach out to her. I hope everybody has a very successful, easy and breezy bar exam. Sure you will all do very well, and I'm sure you're all very prepared. I know it's been very stressful with what has happened, but hopefully they'll be able to be accommodating and everything will go smoothly. Just once again, hopefully when you're all called to the bar, we'll see you eventually. We do offer workplaces, so virtual, in-person, packages, and we're located in Toronto, Mississauga, and Oakville. We might run into you one day.
Wonderful. So same here. Thank you very much, Jessica, for having me and giving me
no worries. Thank you very much. It was a very informative lecture, and the recording will be available hopefully by the end of today. It does take some time for it to download after, but I do also want to send out the content that Gal was discussing, the timesheets. So I'll try to send those out around this time so that way you guys get one email with everything included.
Right. Take care.
Thank you everyone for joining. I hope you all have a great day and you will all kill it.
Can we take a picture, Jessica?
Yes, of course. I've been screenshotting, so
that's good.
I mean, it's not that great. I'll do another one right now. Ready? If anyone wants to turn on their cameras, please feel free. Completely up to you. All right, I have another picture. I'll send these pictures to Go.
Yeah, thank
and
you.
hopefully you can use them. All righty. So I hope you all have a good day. If you do know others that are interested in the recording, we will be sending it out, hopefully, for them to use.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you all for joining. Have a great day. right, Gal, so it's just me now. If you have any final remarks that you just want to talk about, we can about them. But yeah, it was a very good presentation. A lot of people showed up. We had over 60 people attending in and out. It was really good.
No, thank you very much. I wish everybody good luck, and I'm available for any teaching or even coaching for the professional development and core subjects of bar exam. And I would be happy to teach everyone if they ever need a service. And I believe
You're very involved with a lot of things.
So I would say, and I will once again say thank you to both law chambers. You guys are doing amazing service to the community in law. So I always enjoyed your CPD hours.
Oh yes. Hopefully one day you can come to Ontario and actually visit us for coffee, like for one of our social networking events, especially since restrictions are.
Yes, so this summer it's on my cards to be there in person, more meet, because I have around 40 students who have their solo practices in GTA area, and I haven't visited their office.
Yes, it would be really nice to have you come to visit us for coffee or lunch or anything if you're free.
Yes, no, it would be wonderful to meet. And I really like the way you are helping everybody in the process. Like, even I'm a lawyer from last 10 years, I still enjoy something, find very valuable in your, CPD hours. That's what intrigued me at this. Like, I would use your platform to, share my experience.
Yes, thank you so much. I see you you're in every single group on Facebook. So I was shocked when I joined that solo practitioner group.
Yes, I managed
that. Welcome. I'm like, go.
Yes, I'm interested in giving more, my core interest is supporting women in practice of law. So I do professional development coaching now as well. So in that process, we have a couple of groups going on Facebook so that we can provide them precedent support and everything to launch their successful law practice.
That's really good. Yeah, I'll almost be there. Fingers crossed.
Yes.
My next exam.
Love to see you in profession.
Yes, it would be nice to be a part of that too. Alrighty, well, I'm gonna let you go because I do have a meeting for another potential CPD event. Wonderful. So I hope you have a lovely day. I know it's still quite early where you are, and you can just all those contents that you want to send out to.
Yes, I would be working them after my coursework today, and I have some tutoring arrangements, but I will try to get it by end of the day so that we can tweak it and student can use it in a more effective way. Perfect,
not a problem. Well, I hope you have a great day. It sounds like you have a busy one. Take it easy. And we'll speak to you later.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Alrighty, bye.